Salute. You're tapped and tuned in to The Straight Report, No Chaser with Bennie Foster. The Straight Report is a weekly worldwide uncensored commentary on vital topics and epic truths that have been manipulated, diluted, and systematically restricted from mainstream media until right about freaking now. Listen, we are here to share some perspectives. Sometimes in life, we grow up with only what has been offered to us. And if we were to dig, I say truly dig, into our culture, into our tradition, into our religion, we will find that there is much more than meets the eye. Tonight, we're going to look at a couple of topics. We're going to look at the pipeline to prison. We're going to look at the KERNER Commission report. And we're going to look at the Salute Boot Camp Challenge, which is a program from Open House Vision 501c3 out of Jackson, Mississippi. You're tapped and tuned in to The Straight Report. And we're worldwide right now, live on your mobile device. I want to ask you a question. Have you ever noticed how some things are set up and you go into the situation and you can't figure out why it's set up that way because your issue, your challenge, your problem that you're facing is a little different than the cookie cutter standard that they have. And it seemed like there would be some resolve. It seemed like it would be some remedy. But yet, you just can't figure out how to put your finger on it, but you know that something is wrong with that system. And you walk away disappointed, sometimes even broken, confused, and not even just that, your family is affected. Let's look at one of those scenarios, the public school system. Yes, many of you have heard of the school pipeline to prison. Well, I'm going to call it the pipeline to prison because it's not just the school that dictates this situation. It's also some other factors that come into play. When your child goes to school, there is certain rules and standards that every child should follow. Stand in a straight line. Raise your hand to ask permission to speak. Raise your hand to ask permission to go to the restroom. Go to lunch in a single file line. Sit in the lunchroom. Sometimes they ask you to be quiet in the lunchroom while you're eating. Then even when you go outside, you have a certain amount of time to go outside, play, you come back, single file line, you get back in your classroom, you sit in your rows, and you learn the systematic educational curriculum that they set forth to say that it prepares you for life. Well, contraire, mon frere, I've come to rattle that cage. Let's see if we can go down this yellow brick road of systematic things that have been put in place for when your child is a genius. You're right, I said it, a genius, and a public school system structure is telling you something is wrong with your child, and you're searching high and low for alternatives because you're being told something is wrong with your child. Come closer to your mobile device. Come closer to your laptop. It just may be something right with your child. Maybe they're right for construction. Maybe they're right for a trade and skill. Maybe they're right for a painter. Maybe they're right for just, listen, there's work out here that these young people can work that will make more money than my degree, your degree, my producer degrees, and the degrees of all you watching. They can make more money and live a great life if they just got outside of this system. Well, Benny, what is the pipeline to prison? I'm so glad that you asked. The pipeline to prison is set up to when your child doesn't fit in this cookie cutter traditional school system that they are limited. I wrote a letter to you guys. Let's read the letter and see what it says. The letter simply says to you, it says, let's have a courageous conversation. Can we have a courageous conversation? On the Straight Report tonight. Please don't forget to go in Google Academy and YouTube University. Please don't forget to Google Academy and YouTube University and research the following terms or the catchphrases for yourself. Okay, we have number 1, the pipeline to prison. Number 2, we have the KERNER Commission. And number 3, we have the Salute Boot Camp Challenge. This segment, your child goes to school. They are acting up for whatever reason. They may call it ADHD, they may call it A through Z, they may call it bipolar, tripolar. They have all these different names, but it's because your child is being told this is the way that you learn and this is the only way available. And if your child doesn't fit inside of that, they're now writing up these reports. They're now sending your child to the office. They're now suspending your child. I was talking to a parent a couple of weeks ago, a 7-year-old. She's at her wit's end trying to figure out what to do with her child because her child just doesn't fit in that system. And what they've done is they've labeled that child everything besides a decent child or responsible student, okay? And so as this child now is going through this system, we have to now figure out what is the best alternative for this child to learn. If that child doesn't get alternative learning, they continue to get suspended, they continue to move from school to school, and then they get referred to an alternative program. If they do not last in that alternative program, the next scenario would be youth prison at the earliest age of, Department of Juvenile Justice have young children in there as early as 11 years old. 11 years old, Department of Juvenile Justice. It depends on how your child has been depicted, whether they're using violence, whether they're so-called anger management in play, whether there's conflict resolution in play. Whatever it is, because your child has to be accounted for, they're going to be in some type of school, alternative school, Department of Juvenile Justice, and then at the age of 17 in the Department of Juvenile Justice, they're going to cart you off to the adult prison. So let's look at this scenario real quick in the last few minutes of this segment. You have a child that just doesn't learn the way other children learn. So now they're being named, they're being recorded, they're being now restricted from regular classroom, right? The schools are paid for every child that comes to school. If your child doesn't come to school, it's an automatic ding on that school record. That's why it's so important that they get the last school records and send it to the next school, and that those particular things are played out, or else they're trying to figure out what was going on with your child for this time. It accounts for your child, somewhat like cattle, okay? Somewhat like sheep, okay? And so if your child now does not work in that situation, public school, now at the age of teenager, preteen, they can be sent to an alternative school. At that alternative school, they are accounted for, okay? If you don't go to the alternative school, then they recommend the juvenile justice. And that's what they call 3 hots and a cot. Your child is in the juvenile justice, which is the youth prison system. The youth prison system also gets paid for, okay? They're getting paid for every person that's in that cell. And then after that, you already know about the industrial prison complex, about the prison system, how they get paid. So what are we doing when our children are artistic? What are we doing when our children are a genius? What are we doing when our children just really is a person that can do trade and skills? If we teach them how to read a tape measure, if we teach them how to turn a screwdriver, if we teach them how to hammer a nail, if we teach them how to paint, if we teach them how to do logistics, which is transport and delivery of those things that we call valuable. Look at companies like Amazon, UPS. Look at companies that haul off materials. Look at junk removal services. Some of them are making upwards to $1 million a year. And here we are telling our children that they need to get a degree, they need to go to college, get in debt from the college loans that they get, and then hope to pay back these student loans. Ladies and gentlemen, if you want to find out alternatives for your child, please contact the Straight Report. If your child has been acting up, if your child has been being suspended, if your child has been being expelled from school, please consider contacting the Straight Report. Let's figure out an alternative for your child before they are written up and before you have to go down that rabbit hole of trying to keep your kid out of alternative school, out of the Department of Juvenile Justice, and later on pegged to go into a prison industrial complex. I want to see if we have any comments. I know that we have some people watching. I want to make sure that I'm not missing anybody. But in our next segment, what we're going to talk about is this KERNER Commission report, which ties into this whole pipeline to prison? Could it be that it's actually set up for our children to fail? Could it be that there's actually a system that was already determined over 55 years ago? Over 55 years ago, it was discovered what the issue, what the problem is, and why our young people are being pumped into these school systems. Why these young people are being pumped into these juvenile justice systems. Why our young people are being pumped into these alternative schools. There is a system. There is a method to this madness, and we're going to expose it with the Kerner Commission report after this segment. If you want to leave questions and comments at CWU-TV on YouTube, or Cwu-TV Network on Facebook, and Cwu-TV on Rumble, please do so at this time. When we come back next segment, let's get into this Kerner Commission report. You're on the Straight Report. No.
Welcome to the JMMF's Culinary Kitchen in partnership with Footprint Farms, the Farmers Hands Markets, and funded in part by the W.K. Kellogg Foundation, sponsored by Humana. I am Chef Shishi, the owner of Just in Time, the featured chef of the JMMF Culinary Kitchen, where we prepare farm-to-fork centered, healthier, all-natural foods in the urban community. Our menu includes salads made from collards, kale, and spring mix varieties, fresh vegetarian soups, and fresh juice elixirs made daily. We're open Tuesday through Friday from 11 a.m. until 2 p.m. And remember, what you put in your body is just as important as what you put on your body. We look forward to seeing you soon.
We were not really
into the Straight Report.
Shocked or...
You tapped and tuned in to the Straight Report, and I am your host, Bennie Foster, out of Jackson, Mississippi, in an undisclosed location, and we are peeling back the onion, finding out why is our society so divided. And I think we may have the answer. About 55 some odd years ago, Lyndon B. Johnson commissioned a group of Democrats and Republicans to explore why were there race riots going on in 22 cities across America. There were some startling results that came back from this report. We have a clip that we want to show you. After we show you this clip, let's discuss. You're tapped and tuned into the Straight Report, no chaser, and we're now diving into the Kerner Commission report. Producer, let's go.
We were not really shocked or surprised to find these terrible conditions in which black people lived in this country. But we put actual faces on the problems by going out through the country and by the work that the commission did. And we also saw what hostility there was in the country. We met right away after the president appointed us, and we set up a series of 20 days of formal hearings where we heard witnesses all the way from Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. to the head of the FBI, J. Edgar Hoover. And then we broke up into teams and visited riot cities ourselves. And we said that that the terrible conditions gave rise, that any spark could set off the violence. The underlying causes were racism and poverty. The most famous words of the commission were these: our country is moving toward two nations, one black, one white, separate and unequal. And we recommended new national programs, particularly around jobs and education. It was controversial. My own father a small farmer in southwestern Oklahoma. He said, what you're saying is that a person like me ought to pay more taxes to help poor black people who are rioting in Detroit. That's the way a lot of people heard it. President Johnson was convinced that there was some organization, some conspiracy, some planning behind these riots, which had occurred in cities all over the country, large and small. Later on, the president began to change his mind. We made progress, serious progress, on virtually every aspect of race and poverty in the country for about 10 years after the Kerner report. For example, we were very steadily reducing poverty in the country. The findings, of course, are still quite good, and the recommendations as well. You're not going to have the kind of stable society of self-esteem unless we have a good deal more equality in this country. America is founded really on the idea that all of us are created equal, and we ought to have equal opportunities for the good life. That was certainly not true then. It's not true now.
So ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, how do you feel about that? How do you feel that over 55 years ago, it was determined that there is a system set in place of systematic racism that now is actually like a boa constrictor that is actually squeezing society? Certain things they said that will come out of that report, that they literally made this comment, which was just phenomenal, and I'm actually going to repeat this comment that they said. They literally said, my God, they said our nation is moving toward two societies, one black and one white, separate and unequal. Again, I'm going to say this. They said that our nation is moving toward two societies. They're not including Asian, Hispanic, any of that. They said specifically one black and one white, separate and unequal. And then they said that even after the Civil War, even after the Voting Rights Act, we have this report that was actually requested by Lyndon B. Johnson, and then after they gave the report, after they told them that the main thing was lack of employment, watch this, and poor education. Remember we talked about the pipeline to prison in the first segment? Okay, so now we have this thing called the Kerner report that's been buried for 55 years. Let's look at some more things that happened from this Kerner report. Did you know that it said that we were shut out of a white-dominated society? Again, time out. Official like a referee with a whistle. Is yours truly, Bennie Foster. I am not a black, white tip type of person. I'm not on the white versus black. I'm not on that. I'm not on the crayon color versus the crayon color. Did you notice that we're the only two races that are named after crayons, colors, black and white? That's not my intention. But when you find such a document as this that is literally saying that people discovered the cure to cancer, they discovered the great, listen, divisional tool that divides us. They discovered where the root of the issue was, the root of the problem was, and they gave recommendations. It called for us to expand aid to black communities. Jackson, Mississippi, are you listening to this? We have cried out throughout the nation looking for aid. Have we not been yet entertained? Have we not figured this out? This is a game, and we're losing because we haven't figured out how to play the game. This is a systematic issue that has been placed on this city from decades ago. It is intentional to not fix the potholes. It is intentional to not fix the water system. It is intentional that there is a systematic thumb on this city. It is set up. This does not sound like the Kerner report. What we just heard through the video. If you're just joining us now, please go back and watch this episode in its entirety so you can get the blunt trauma effect that you've been duped, that you've been hoodwinked, that you've been cable-toed into believing that there's no hope for this city. It has been intentionally set up across the nation that cities such as Jackson, Mississippi, dilapidate, that they literally fall apart. And then, of course, someone's going to swoop in to the rescue. Do we not understand that it's not a racial war that is brewing? It is racial status. It is not a racial war that is brewing. It is caste systems. Caste systems where the rich stay rich and the poor remain poor. The wealthy begin to stack their wealth while the poor begin to suffer the more. This is a system that is set in place. Let's look at another point. It said in the Kerner report, unless programs were quickly created to help the situation, the report said that there would be continuing polarization of the American community and ultimately the destruction of basic democratic values. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, I want you to understand that President Lyndon B. Johnson set this up with Republicans and Democrats, and he thought that they literally were going to come back with something other than what they came back with. So if 55 years ago, they discovered what the true problem was for inner city violence, do you understand that this report was sparked on the heels of the police shooting a crime suspect? Just like the Memphis situation, just like incidents that have happened in Atlanta and all these other cities. We keep doing the same thing over and over and over again. Jackson, Mississippi, stand up. It is time for us to break the cycle that creates the pattern of no effects coming out of the marching, the yelling, the screaming, the walking around with guns. If you want to understand what the solution is, it is among us. It is among us unifying. There is an intentional division that is being caused by a whole slew of factors. But the solution is that we unify on one accord, one heart, one mind for the love and for the salvation of Jackson, Mississippi, and any other city that is suffering from this Kerner Commission report. 55 years ago, 55, almost a half of a century plus, we have suffered from this. And we're scratching our head trying to figure out why. I think I know why. I bet you is that the wealthy stay wealthy and that the poor stay poor. But what are we going to do? Ladies and gentlemen, we'll be back in a second. As we end this segment, we're going to come back with some solutions that Open House Vision has made available. Salute.
Welcome to the JMMF's Culinary Kitchen in partnership with Footprint Farms, the Farmers' Hands Markets, and funded in part by the W.K. Kellogg Foundation, sponsored by Humana. I am Chef Shishi, the owner of Just in Time, the featured chef of the JMMF Culinary Kitchen, where we prepare farm-to-fork centered, healthier, all-natural foods in the urban community. Our menu includes salads made from collards, kale, and spring mix varieties, fresh vegetarian soups, and fresh made daily. We're open Tuesday through Friday from 11 a.m. until 2 p.m. And remember, what you put in your body is just as important as what you put on your body. We look forward to seeing you soon.
We're back. You're tapped and tuned in to The Straight Report. Yours truly, Bennie Foster. The Straight Report is a weekly worldwide uncensored commentary on vital topics and epic truths that have been manipulated, diluted, and systematically restricted from mainstream media until right freaking now. Listen, I have to loosen my tie up a little bit. It's getting hot in here, man. It's getting hot in here. I'm getting a little hotter on the collar when I realize that this thing is a big setup. We have a comment on YouTube. Social economic division is the issue at hand. Exactly. We have some more comments, very shocking information, giving us massive depth, opportunities to keep our minds on the truth. And yes, we are now dealing with social economic disadvantages. Why is it? So if we continue to push our children to play into a system that we know is broken, who's to blame? Can we continue to blame the government, or can we now look at ourselves? Michael Jackson had a song years ago that was very prophetic and profound even to today, and it's called The Man in the Mirror. The Man in the Mirror. If each and every one of us will look and see how we are contributing to this system and begin to take our energy, I mean our power, I mean our frequency and vibration away from contributing to this madness, then and only then will we see change. If we have to build our own schools, if we have to homeschool our children, it is time. Trust me, I am an educator. I am not beating up the educational powers that be as far as teachers and administrators and those assistant principals and those assistants and those people that work as school faculty and staff. This is not aimed at them. I've been one of those people that were in a school trying to get things to work. And I always found myself offering innovative resources and alternatives. And with that in mind, let's look at the Salute Boot Camp Challenge. The Salute Boot Camp Challenge is a 5-hour boot camp that is designed to make young people think, to make young people see how to work together, to implement, hear this, conflict resolution, to implement, hear this, anger management, to implement solution-oriented values. These are the things that our young people are suffering from that makes them resort to violence, that make them rebel, that make them buck the system because they haven't yet discovered who they are. We show them who they are within 5 hours. We also have a trade and life skills camp where we teach the young people how to read a tape measure, how to use a screwdriver, a drill, how to hammer a nail, and they do a project before the end of that 3 to 5 hour camp. We also have the fishtails, camping and fishing, where we take young people out, show them how to pitch a tent, show them how to fish, hiking, scavenger hunt. All of these programs are designed to make a young person think, and then we offer mentorship on the follow-up side of this. So we have a video that we want to show you tonight. It is a boot camp that we just experienced in Atlanta. It's some behind the scenes footage. It's known as BTS in the media world. And as we show you this video, I just want you to really get some of these nuggets out of how I met some brothers, some I knew, some I didn't know. Some worked with me before, some haven't. And we poured into these 5 young men. And I want you to notice their countenance during this video as it changes from one of uncertainty to confidence by the end of this video. Producer, do we have that video ready? We'll be back after this video. They asked me, How do I know that this is gonna work, and how do we know? Do you got any data? Let me show you what my data is. Keywan, Dion, Dre Magic, Buddy, D Marley, alive and free. That's why I know this works. And they all want to know, will this work?
Hello, my name is Chance Thomas. My name is Tommy.
I'm Jamil.
My name is Kai.
So when I say salute, salute. When I say salute, salute. There's gonna be a lot of call and response. Some of your friends are dying to get out of here. Oh man, you hear me? Literally. They didn't mess up. They made a mistake. It's okay to make a mistake.
Okay. How about you? What you get from it?
You got it right?
No.
Yeah, you got it right. Yes. Yeah, I like that. Who said that?
He said confidence.
Say it loud.
Who
Say it
said
loud.
first with confidence?
I said confident.
Say it loud.
Confident.
But when you're building, the most important part of your building, whether it's relationships or confidence or family, the most important piece. Where's the foundation? It's at the bottom.
All right, so here we go. Left, right, left, left, left.
Say it.
Stop. We gotta start on the same foot. All right, here y'all. Here we go. 1, 2, ready, go. Left, left.
Salute to me, we all come
Together,
as we learn to sing the song.
Sing it. Speak up. Get it right this time. Let's go. Hoorah! Hoorah!
It's just like learning in school. You learn first grade, then you learn everything you first grade, then you go to the second grade, then you go to the third grade. It's just life. Life is like that.
All right, all right.
3, 2,
He gonna start it late.
1. Oh, he dropped it over his head.
Y'all see y'all already at 6 seconds. Look at y'all. Oh my goodness. Oh,
take your time. Slow down a little bit. We done.
So you have to leave your footprints. You can't just be here. You have to live. You just can't exist. You have to live.
I think the boot camp is good, and you taught me a lot that I didn't know.
I learned that it's better to work as a team and be more successful.
I think this boot camp helped me. Like, it just helped me surround myself with positivity.
I like the boot camp because it's inspirational.
Salute.
This boot camp gave me motivation to do great things in this world. Salute.
Salute. Text to receive the Salute Bootcamp Challenge link. All right, that video did not show the weight of what transpired with those 5 young men. Some were athletes, some were already in mentorship program. One of the young men was actually really on the verge of not coming home, mom trying to figure out where he was. And again, those ages were 12 years old to 18. And I'm gonna say it was one of the younger children that was actually acting out. And we had a one-on-one, and I literally have a date, follow-up, check-up with him coming up this week. And I'm excited about being able to see. I told mom to call me if she had any problems prior to my check-in, and she hasn't called me, so I'm believing that he's on track. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm telling you right now that the answer is mentorship. The answer is mentorship in and around our schools, in and throughout our community, in and throughout the workplace. If you are an entrepreneur, give a young person an opportunity to be an intern, to apprenticeship with you. You'll be surprised on that you're not just saving a life, but you're saving a family from grief of having to face the loss of that child, the death of that child, or even the child that ends up being in a situation like this situation that's going on with one of the rappers that was murdered over a bag that he had. The Triple X artist, his name was Extension. And now there's a young man who's actually sharing all the details. And some people was like, oh, he telling everything. And I asked the question, I said, do you realize that young man was just hanging out with some people that he thought was his friends? And one of those people decided to do something that we call commit a crime. And that young man is dead now because someone had low self-esteem, because someone didn't have a support system, because someone was so hungry that they didn't care about taking another man's life. This is what the Kerner Commission report said that would be in our communities if we did not make some changes. We cannot continue to look to the sky or look to the government for our answers. I challenge you tonight, any of you that see this report, contact the Straight Report and let's see how we can work together to make a change in your community. We bring that boot camp to any city. All we need is a facility to conduct it, and we want to tap and tune in with a couple of people in your city that are already having the heart for mentorship. This is the solution. Mentorship is an arc of safety. Will you join the fight? When you join us next week, we're going to come with another gem of what's been hidden from society. All of these different documents, all of these different truths that have been buried because we have, listen, so gullible. We have been so gullible that we accept anything that's offered to us as truth. Will you shine your light in the darkness with this information? Will you share? Not just share, will you take action? You've been tapped and tuned in to the Straight Report, which is a weekly worldwide uncensored commentary. It's on vital topics and epic truths that have been manipulated, diluted, and systematically restricted from mainstream media until now. I am your host, Bennie Foster. You can contact me at 1-833-GPS-LOVE. That's 477-5683. Again, 1-833-477-5683. As we close out this episode, I pray that I tapped into your mindset and that you know that if you change your mind, you'll change your life. Thank you for watching The Straight Report on Cwu-Tv.